Do you ever feel that the quality of your audio on your recorded video sucks and that you really want to take that quality to a new level altogether? Let's dive into the tips now. Tip number 1, garbage in equals garbage out. You need to use an external microphone and record in an environment that is pretty clean, meaning acoustically good without a lot of noise. There are many types of external microphones, from lav mics to desktop mics to shotgun mics, and then there's different types of interfaces. There's XLR connectivity, there's USB connectivity, there's all kinds of different external mics. You need to ultimately decide the external mic that you need for the application you need. So in other words, if you're a vlogger or you do documentaries or you're a podcaster or a screencaster or you stand up and do presentations, there's different mics for different applications. So the subject of choosing a microphone is going to be covered in another video. But for now, what we need to know is just to appreciate that an external mic will raise the quality level and give you cleaner quality audio, and good quality audio going in means less post-processing to deal with, and you'll have a better quality output. So how do you get the best acoustical environment? Well, for starters, if you're doing recording inside, ideally, if there was no budget limitation, you could get a whisper room or a specialized vocal booth, and that would, isolate things and make the recording acoustically the best it could be. But it's not always practical to do that, so you need to consider what things you can do to control the environment, and these things you will want to do regardless. For example, there are a lot of internal noises that you can address. For example, there's heating, there's air conditioning, and in the summer, if it's very hot, you'll turn off the air conditioning, but it may be a little uncomfortable. Or in the winter, you may have to turn off the heater if temporarily while you're recording so that you can minimize the noise from those sources. But you do what you need to do in order to get a good quality result. Other noises you need to manage inside may be the chair you're in. For example, me. Hear that? That's squeaking from the chair I'm in. And other room noises can come into play, from noises you make on your computer to other noises like a mouse wheel or tapping. You just need to be sensitive to what you're doing to create noise in your internal environment. In contrast, outside, noises from outside, you don't have as much control over. So you might want to plan when you record to minimize the impact of those things so you don't have a lot to deal with in post-processing. For example, there may be times of the day where there's less traffic where you live, so that could be a variable you might have a bit of influence on in terms of the time of day that you choose to record. But things like lawnmowers, kids making noises outside, pets, dogs barking, there's a lot of things you don't have control over, and you may have to manage through post-processing. Tip number 2, use standalone audio editing software. Most video editors that have audio editing in them are very limited in their features. For example, there may be a fade in or a fade out feature that you can set, or choose various audio points and adjust the volume in different elements on clips that you have in your timeline that you can edit. But that's very limited. There may also be a noise reduction feature, which has a turn on and turn off, and voila, there's your noise reduction. These features inside a video editor, although great that they're there and simple to use, may not help you achieve the polish or quality that you ultimately want in the end product that you create, meaning the finished, polished, audio edited product. So how can you achieve that? You use a separate computer program dedicated for the purpose of audio editing. For example, there's Audacity, which is free, which is a feature-rich application, which was designed through open source, and it's very rich and widely used. And then a pay version is something like Adobe Audition. The great thing about these products is, if you take, for example, noise filtering. The noise filtering, for example, in Adobe Audition, has the ability not only to just filter out the noise, you have the ability to make a higher quality application of the noise reduction. Another big bonus about separate audio editing software is the fact that there may be several other effects that you can apply. So aside from just noise filtering, you may want to adjust the gain or the volume or the amplitude. You may want to compress, normalize. You may have limiting filters. You may want to use an EQ to adjust the frequencies in different ranges. Because the end result of the audio is ultimately a creation of art, you have more power in your hands when you use a separate tool like an audio editor. Tip number 3, audio editing processing. When I do the audio editing, I typically seek to clean up the noise floor, followed by doing some normalization and then compression if needed. So really, you can get a lot of mileage out of just doing a few effects to what you've recorded. So in doing the noise reduction, you need to sample a piece of one of your tracks. So to get a good sample with the noise floor, it's advisable to leave a clip of sound, like maybe 5 or 10 seconds, that just reflects the ambience of the room, meaning the bass noise level. And then you can use what's called the noise print capture feature of your audio editing software. And then you can apply processing to it after you tweak the parameters to see how much noise you want to remove from your recording. After you tweak the noise reduction, I then find that if the recording is out of balance, in the sense that based on the way I talk, there are some peaks that go too high, but most of the volume level or the range of my voice recording is much lower, I will work to level out some of those peaks, so just to trim the amplitude down of some of those peaks. And then I apply the normalize function to raise the audio level to somewhere between 0 to -3 dB, so that I don't go into the clipping range, but now I've increased consistently across the board or normalized the volume of my recording based on the peaks that are there. And then the last step, I may use some form of compression filter to help raise the sound quality in certain levels so that it's stronger throughout the track. So basically, after applying just those 3 sound effects, I can do a significant justice to the quality of what's been recorded. Tip number 4, check the acceptability of your recording on a multitude of devices. Nowadays, most people are consuming video on mobile. That could be like a tablet or your smartphone, and often they're using earbuds or headphones. So I would suggest be sure that you play back your recording on a number of devices just to get a feel for how it's all working out. And then remember that you should do a little tweaking if necessary to optimize the quality of the output for your mobile consumer. One particular area that you need to be concerned about for optimizing is when you've mixed music with your voice, because oftentimes you will find that earbuds may produce higher frequencies, more so than lower ones, at least to what you're going to hear. And consequently, the music may sound overpowering, and you may not have noticed that through listening through your studio headphones or your studio monitor speakers. So music can be a tricky thing. That's one thing I would keep in mind when I'm tweaking things. Tip number 5, proximity of the microphone. This should be as close to the talent as possible. With a lav mic, just by the nature of where you clip it on, you're already, ensuring that it's going to stay in the specific distance that you set it up to be at, no matter what the person is doing, whether they're walking around like a presentation floor or outside. Lav mics are designed to be a little more high frequency enhanced because they're typically hidden or under a layer of clothing or somewhere else on your body. But regardless of how the sound does come out with a lav mic, you can always, in post-processing, adjust the higher frequencies if they need a boost, and that's something you can do to enhance the quality of that kind of recording. For something like a desktop or directional mic, like a lot of the USB mics, you need to be much more careful. Well, obviously, when you're using a desktop mic, you're not so concerned that it's visible on camera. But with that kind of mic, you can get, a more dynamic and richer tone and sound. But you need to be, within about 6 inches of the microphone. But there are other factors that come into play here, because when you're this close to the microphone, if you're head on, you may be pushing air when you say your P's or your S's, and when that air hits the microphone, it creates havoc. So you want to minimize your plosives and what's called sibilance. And to do that, you have a few options. So for example, if you slightly go off axis, either above or to the side, you can minimize that air direct impact on the microphone. That said, you will have a little lower volume in the recording, but you won't have those blasts that hit the mic. So that's a good thing to consider when you're recording with a desktop microphone. Another thing you need to consider when you're recording with the desktop microphone is that if you're too close, you may have more of a bassy sound, or too far away, you may have more of what the room echo or reverb does combined with your voice. So obviously, with this kind of desktop microphone, the closer you are and, averaging around 6 inches from the mic, you're going to get a better quality sound. And of course, again, post-processing, you can work with adjusting all kinds of these things. Now, lastly, with a shotgun mic, typically it's about 2 to 3 feet away. And you often use a shotgun mic when you want to have the mic off camera and not visible. And some cases that's used is right on the camera, and it's directional, pointing right at the person who's sitting in front of the camera, whether you're a vlogger or doing a documentary style presentation. The microphone's out of the camera. So you want to be within 2 to 3 feet and make sure the direction is appropriate. Sometimes the shotgun mic is put on a boom, but you want to be sure it's sort of focused down at a 45-degree angle so that you get good projection and direction to the shotgun mic when the recording is being done. When a shotgun mic is mounted on top of a DSLR, if you're using a nice wide-angle lens and you're just 2 or 3 feet away, it's awesome. It's perfect. You're going to get good quality voice production and have less noise in the situation to deal with. However, if you're using something like a 30 millimeter or a 50 millimeter lens on the camera, and the camera's at a different focal distance, that shotgun mic way back there is going to collect potentially all kinds of noise and other characteristics in terms of how your voice is going to sound. So in that case, it's going to be best to remove the shotgun mount from the hot shoe on the DSLR and mount it on a boom situation, where you can then bring it closer to you, still hold it out of frame on the boom, angled nicely, and you'll get a good quality recording. Tip number 6, field recorder. Do I need one? A field recorder can be a great asset. Personally, I have a Zoom H5 and I use it in a few different circumstances. But one of the primary situations to use it is where you may be doing an interview situation, or where you need to wire up 2 lav mics, for example. Because it's an external recorder, you have the ability to plug in multiple microphones. The Zoom H5 has an XLR input, so that's how I use it. So when I'm doing an interview, I can easily have 2 people mic'd with lavs. Another great use for it might be if you're outside and you need portability to have a good quality audio recorder. So often people may be outside and using a boom shotgun mic to record, and they can plug that right into something like a Zoom recorder, which has the portability and goes with you outside. So those are 2 great situations where you can use it. Tip number 7, when using your DSLR with an external recorder hooked up to it, you need to set the audio feature inside the DSLR to run in manual mode and not auto. This is very important, because if you run the DSLR on auto mode, you're going to potentially have a lot of additional background hiss and noise in your recording while you have the external recorder hooked up. And that's because there's a feature inside the DSLR camera called the auto gain control that's constantly trying to automatically adjust the volume levels of the recording. And if it senses quiet passages, it overcompensates by amplifying. So in essence, you're amplifying noise for the most part. So if you set that feature to manual, you then need to balance the levels between the DSLR and the external recorder. The way you find out about that is do a little research on your brand, your camera, as well as the external microphone. Then you're going to get the best quality results, very clean, nice and quiet, and you'll be very happy with the quality of the recorded output. Tip number 8, batch or utilize presets where you can. If you're using a computer program to do your audio editing, not just the video editor, you're going to have the ability to use effects presets, or in the case of Adobe Audition, you have what are called the effects racks. So when you apply a sequence of effects, like your noise reduction followed by your normalization and your compression, all that you've applied is there recorded, and you can actually save that as a preset to call upon and utilize just, with a few clicks. And if you can get to that level of efficiency, which is something that is possible when you're recording in like a consistent environment and it's the same setup with the microphone, the camera, and you're consistently recording with the same kind of environment, then you can likely reapply the same kind of editing to the end result after. Wow, those were great tips on how to get better quality audio recorded for your video. If you haven't already watched a related video that I did about voiceover tips for videos, click on the link above or find a link in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions on how to get better audio recordings for your videos, please leave them down below and I'll help you out if I can. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so that I can continue to bring more videos like this to help you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and thank you for watching.